Now, self-deportation in and of itself sounds a little bit like an oxymoron. But a lot of people say that it's a term that describes the goal in states across the country right now where draconian immigration laws have been passed, like Arizona or Alabama, making life so hard for undocumented immigrants that they voluntarily leave. Joining me to discuss this is Axel Caballero, founder and producer of Cuentame, a brave new foundation campaign. Axel, thanks for joining us tonight. And I guess let me hear your definition of what exactly self-deportation is.
Well, I think first and foremost, most people right now are kind of scratching their heads trying to figure out what exactly is self-deportation. This is something that just came out of the blue as far as his campaign is a new policy reversal, if you can call that policy. It's kind of ludicrous to just think that out of nowhere 12 million undocumented folks are going to stand up and say we're going to leave this country. You know, this is not for us anymore. So I think that that's the main first point. The second point to that is that really what it sounds to be is more of a code word to just not do anything, to leave it up to right now the policies that are happening throughout the states, the vacuum that has caused Arizona to enact SB 1070 or to try to enact SB 1070, the policy that has allowed private prison corporations to fund a thing behind this new policy reversal and make it sound as if he's softening his stance on immigration, when in reality it's ambiguous. It's a term that really doesn't say anything as far as we're concerned.
Well, you know, I also liked Claire Jeffries over at Mother Jones basically called this the Conservative Trifecta, because she said that it has this free market, free will sort of sound to it. At the same time, it could reduce deportation costs if people are living on their own. And it really, emphasizes the states passing their own legislation that tries to push undocumented immigrants out. And then you don't even need the federal government involved either. So it kind of makes sense that they try to just use this word that sounds flowery. But really, I mean, isn't this, if you look at some of the laws that are being passed in Alabama or in Arizona, it's about scaring people too, right? To the point where they're afraid to sign their children up for school. They might be afraid to take them to the hospital if your citizenship is going to be checked all the time.
That's essentially right. And I think what is even more mind-boggling is that this is precisely what he's been advocating with candidate Romney and a lot of the other candidates as well. They have been advocating for a very harsh anti-immigration stance, pretty much along the lines of what Alabama, what Arizona, what Utah, what Georgia worked to pass. And now the primary moves into Latino states like Florida and New Mexico. And now suddenly the stance is, well, it's really self-deportation.
Well, on that note, Axel, let me cut you off really quick, too, because we're running out of time a little bit. But we have, yesterday on our show, we showed Mitt Romney's new Spanish language ad, where he's trying to appeal to Hispanic voters. And so here I thought that one of the moderators last night asked a very good question. Let's take a look.
All of you favor making English the official language of the United States, which could mean that ballots and other government documents would not be available in Spanish. But Speaker Gingrich, you're sending out press releases in Spanish. Governor Romney, you're advertising in Spanish. Why is it okay for you to court voters in Spanish, but not okay for the government to serve them in Spanish?
All right, so that was Beth Reinhardt. We didn't have a show yesterday. That was my mental flub there. But Mitt Romney does have this Spanish language ad out right now where his son's talking about it. And I think that she brings up a really good point. Are Latino voters going to buy that if you start putting out Spanish language ads?
Well, that's essentially what is happening right now with all the campaigns, where they take a hard stance because they're going for the base, they're trying to mobilize their folks, and then when it's time to reach out the constituents that actually would need to reach out, the folks that are really important in this election, then they change. They change the language, they reach out in different language, and then try to adapt to pretty much what the campaign should be in the first place. So I think that there's a disconnect, and we're seeing that, and I think the Latino electorate, as the rest of the country, is pretty smart. It's very smart, I would say, and they can recognize, we can recognize that sometimes these words are just political words. It's more politicians saying or trying to say what the constituents want to hear. What we really want to know is exactly what the proposals are going to be throughout the campaign and to have a clear positions on those proposals.
But let me play you something that Rick Santorum said last night, which is very much a big Republican talking point.
Bottom line is that if you do enforce the law and say that...
Okay, we can't play it right now, unfortunately, but Rick Santorum basically is going on with this line that everything you do, if you entered this country illegally initially, then everything you do from then on is an illegal act. Anywhere you might work, any school that you might attend, and how do you counter that kind of a statement?
Well, it's very hard to counter because there's already this stigma that has been created as far as what the word illegal means and what these actions are. But let's start first and foremost from the understanding of the reasoning why folks migrate here. And it's not because they want to commit crimes. Having a job is not a crime, particularly working for living to have a better life. That's not a crime. And so I think that it is absolutely a disconnect with reality as far as what they are trying to portray as illegal behavior, what in reality is happening. A crime are CEOs that are really, robbing the American people right now with all these bailout stuff that we're going to see in the State of the Union. A crime is a murder or a particular actual crime that is happening as is stated in our laws. But behavior just because of the act of migrating over here and that behavior, anything that you do becomes illegal, it becomes a crime. That is essentially what the problem is in this dialogue, is that it has become so polarized and so amazingly detrimental to the public discourse that is presenting a problem as far as really finding solutions to move this immigration debate forward.
Yeah, we'll have to see what the president says tonight in his State of the Union on immigration, too, because I can't imagine that he's going to ignore it, especially not in this election year. Axel, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks so much for having me.